Fellas, some of the champions we have right now in the UFC are strikers, some of them are grapplers, but I'm going to be going through every current champion we have in the males divisions and picking out who's the worst striker, the best striker, the worst grappler, the best grappler, etc. Starting off with the worst at 8 and then the best at number 1, so we'll go straight into it at 8. With the worst striker and the worst grappler. And by the way, I've gone with Pantoja for striking and Pereira for grappling, but when I say the worst, listen, this is a high standard. I'm comparing them to other champions, but anyway, I'll start off with Pantoja. I do think he's got the worst striking compared to the rest of the champions we've got in the UFC. Mainly because it's just Pantoja. He's just so wild. He's a wild scrapper, is Pantoja. At the beginning of every fight, he'll always run in there in the middle of the octagon, swinging for the fences. And it might be effective sometimes. He's rocked a few opponents. He's dropped a few opponents. He hits like a truck. He's one of the hardest hitters in the flyweight division since Davis and Figueiredo. But it definitely costs him. If you look at him in the later rounds of his fights, he does tend to be fading away. He tends to slow down and he starts to get outboxed. You saw him get outboxed against Moreno, Brandon Royval in the later rounds as well. So he definitely kind of, it definitely has to pay for it sometimes. And it's just overall, I feel like Pantoja's technique, it is just a bit scrappy. Not much technique there anyway. So I'm going to say that out of all the champions, it is his striking that lacks the most. And in a division of the flyweight division full of strikers, it's definitely going to cost him sometimes. So I'm going to say compared to the rest of the champions, he's got the worst striking. And then I've gone with Pereira for grappling. I think a lot of people will agree now. Obviously, we can't blame him. He's gone from glory kickboxing straight to the UFC. No grappling background like a lot of these other champions have had. So he's also had like grappling problems in nearly every fight. The first Adesanya fight in the UFC, the Jan Blachowicz fight, the Yuri Prohaska fight, and if he ever gets a fight with people like Magomed Ankalaev, it's really going to cost him. Now, he's improving his grappling. He's been training with Glover Teixeira and it's improving, but I'm going to say that out of every champion we've got, I'm going to have to say that Pereira's the worst grappler. Then we move on to number 7. I think the worst striking, well, the next worst striking, I guess, is John Jones, and the next worst grappler is Sean O'Malley. Now, John Jones isn't a bad striker. It's just a lot of the champions we've got in the UFC right now are strikers, and I just don't think John Jones is up there with them anymore. If we look at his fight with Cyril Gane, and I'm going to be basing this off his most recent fight at heavyweight because we are talking about current Jones, not necessarily prime Jones. But if we look at his fight with Cyril Gane, he was just really slow. I know there was only like 30 seconds of striking, but he looked really slow. And he's just never really had great... I'm going to be honest, he's never really had great hands either. He's never really had much power, much finishing ability on the feet. His boxing's never really been crisp. He's always, had to rely on his kicks and his elbows, and obviously his grappling as well. But his striking isn't his strong point in my opinion. It all just comes down to his grappling and his fight IQ. But for John Jones, I'm going to say he's not one of the best strikers we've got out of all the champions. And to be fair, he doesn't have to be. Listen, he's old. Not that old, but you know what I mean. He's not in his prime. He's fighting a third generation of fighters compared to the other two that he's beaten. So yeah, John Jones is the next worst striker. And then for grappling, I've gone Sean O'Malley. Now, he's never really shown that he's absolutely terrible at grappling because he's actually got really good takedown defense, but he's never really shown anything other than that. Besides takedown defense, he's never shown anything to show that he's an amazing grappler. He doesn't really do anything with it. Like, he's never really, never you'll see Sean O'Malley ever. You'll never see him doing offensive grappling. And the few times there has been grappling exchanges, he's mostly lost them all. So I can't really rate Sean O'Malley's grappling any higher than a 7 because he just doesn't do anything with it. Besides, defend takedowns, which I guess, can get points for. But yeah, that's my number 7. Number 6, now we're getting on to fighters that, fairly well-rounded but still lacking some areas. For striking, I've gone Islam Makhachev, and then for grappling, I've gone Sean Strickland. Now, Islam Makhachev, I don't think he's a bad striker at all. Like, he's actually improved his striking so much. To go out there and knock out Volkanovski, now, I'm not going to give him too much credit for that because, listen, he was Volkanovski, so he does deserve respect, but it was on 12 days' notice, and it was someone who wasn't a natural lightweight, so I'm not going to sit here and praise him too much, but the fact that he still managed to knock out Volkanovski, fair play to him. He looked way better than Oliveira on the feet as well. He's looked great on the feet in so many of his fights, and he's actually becoming dangerous on the feet. But obviously, he's still got so much to improve as well. And to be fair, I think a lot of the reason he's good at striking is because of the threat of the takedown. But yeah, not a bad striker at all. He's actually really good, but there's too many striking champions right now. Then I'm just going to have to put him on on the lower end of this list. And then grappling, I've gone Sean Strickland. Again, kind of like Sean O'Malley with grappling. He's got grappling. He just doesn't really use it. You never really see Sean Strickland grappling. He's not a bad grappler. He's never shown that he's easily out-wrestled or easily out-grappled. He's never really getting put into situations where he gets submitted, so I can't really talk about his submission defense or offense, but in pretty much every Sean Strickland fight, it'll just be him striking. And that's pretty much it. I can't really say anything else. He doesn't use his grappling. We don't really see any of his grappling. But I do, from the times we have seen his grappling, it hasn't been terrible. So I'll put Strickland at number 6. He's kind of just neutral. Doesn't really do anything with his grappling, but, he's not really bad at it necessarily. Number 5. Now we're getting onto the more well-rounded people. Sean Strickland again and Leon Edwards. Now, the reason I've chosen Strickland for striking is because, again, he's a good striker. I wouldn't compare him to the rest of the strikers in the UFC right now, but he's still a good striker. The fact that he was able to beat Adesanya, you've got to give him a lot of credit for that. Outboxing Adesanya for 5 rounds was insane. The finish he got over Abbas Magomedov. Like, if you're not a great striker in the middleweight division, if you're not a top tier striker, and that's all you've got no other game plan but to strike with Strickland, you're going to get pieced up. He's pieced so many people up. Jack Hermanson, Brendan Allen. He's insane on the feet. Even a competitive fight with Jared Cannonier. So I'm going to say that he's 5 for striking. Definitely one of the strongest strikers in the middleweight division, 100%. And if you're not willing, if you're not a great striker, he'll make you pay for it. And then grappling, I've gone Leon Edwards. Yeah, Leon Edwards has got good grappling, actually really good grappling. He does use it offensively as well. As good as his takedown defense is, he's not just one of these champions, or strikers, should I say, who relies on his takedown defense. He's shown offensive takedown, offensive grappling. That first round against Kamaru Usman in their rematch. Colby Covington as well, the fact that he was able to take Colby Covington down. He's shown that his grappling has improved so much, which, he has to, because he's in a division that's full of grapplers. So, yeah, I'm going to put Leon Edwards at 5 for grappling. I wouldn't call him, one of the best grapplers in the UFC, one of the best grappling champions, but it's definitely not bad by any means, and it's definitely on the better side of grappling. Number 4. Now we're getting into the strong points. I've gone double Volkanovski. I think Volkanovski's at 4. I think he's got good striking, or not good, great striking, and he's also got great grappling. Yeah, Volkanovski's looked great in pretty much every single striking match at featherweight. The fact that he was able to beat Volkanovski the way he did beat Holloway in the way he did in the trilogy. Who does that to Holloway? I still can't believe Volkanovski was able to do that to Holloway. Other fights as well, the Yair Rodriguez fight, the Korean Zombie fight, Brian Ortega fight. Volkanovski is just an insane striker. One of the best in the UFC, 100%, and that's why I've put him on the upper end of this list. He did get knocked out by Islam Makhachev, and like I said, it was on 12 days notice, and, I'm not going to talk about that one too much, but he did get knocked out by Islam Makhachev, so I feel like putting him too far away from Makhachev would kind of be insulting to Makhachev. And he does also mix a lot of his striking with his grappling, but overall, solid striker. And then grappling, yeah, he's a solid grappler as Volkanovski. In fact, I think he's the best pure wrestler in the featherweight division. I've said this before, I think he's better than Evloev, Topuria. I think his wrestling is so good. And look at the Makhachev fight. Makhachev's one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. And Volkanovski held his own against Makhachev. In fact, even looked good in some grappling exchanges and even one-upped Makhachev in some of the grappling exchanges. So for grappling, I've also gone Volkanovski at 4. Overall, one of the most well-rounded fighters in the UFC. Now we're in the top 3. Striking, I've gone Leon Edwards, and grappling, I've gone Pantoja. I've gone Leon Edwards on the higher end of striking because you kind of have to. He does lack finishing ability. I know I've put a picture of him knocking out Kamaru Usman, but he does kind of lack finishing ability. But this guy's technique is on another level. He pieces everyone up. Usman, Covington. I don't want to talk about the Diaz fight too much because I'm not sure that Diaz is, the highest caliber of opponent. But Leon Edwards never looks bad on the feet, ever. Like, Leon Edwards has never been dominated on the feet. He's never looked terrible on the feet. There's been times when he's been rocked. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely been times when he's been rocked, but he's never really looked inferior on the feet. He's just an overall really clean striker. He plays his pot, he does the right thing at the right time all the time. So I'm going to have to give Leon Edwards the striking, one of the best in the UFC. And then grappling, Pantoja. Yeah, he's extremely dangerous as Pantoja when it comes to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got amazing submission offense. If you're not a high-level grappler and you've not got amazing submission defense, this guy will put you out there quick. He beat Brandon Moreno well, I'm not going to say comfortably because it was a close fight, but the main reason he beat Moreno was because of his insane grappling ability. Submitted Royval the first fight and beat him the second fight because of the grappling. Overall, he's a grappling machine, and I'm going to say that he's got the best grappling right now in the flyweight division because of that. He's just insane, his Pantoja at grappling. So I've put him on the top 3 for this list. I've just gone backwards. Yeah, Pantoja and Leon for that one. Now we're in the top 2. At number 2, for striking, I've gone Sean O'Malley, and grappling, I've gone John Jones. Yeah, we'll start off with O'Malley. O'Malley is one of the most dangerous strikers in the UFC right now. He's so good at everything on the feet, using his range, the power that he's got. He's an absolute knockout artist. And if you make one mistake against Sean O'Malley on the feet, he will make you pay for it by separating you from consciousness. Sean O'Malley's an amazing striker. I still can't believe he was able to outstrike and beat Yan. I can't believe that. I thought he was going to get mauled. Knockout art, he's beating so many of these contenders. I think he's going to beat Marlon Vera because of that striking advantage as well. And I honestly want to say that he's the best striker in the bantamweight division right now. He's overall just a solid striker. I mean, he has to rely on it, but he's amazing at it. Boxing's great. Kickboxing's great. Overall, 100%. I'm going to have to put Sean O'Malley up there with one of the best strikers. And then grapplers, I've gone John Jones top 2. Yeah. I mean, if we're looking at getting Cyril Gane, I mean, he took Cyril Gane down and submitted it like it was nothing. Yes, Cyril Gane might not be the highest caliber of grapplers, but still, he still did it. And you look at him in his early career, this guy was insane. Some of the best judo we've seen, slamming people, tripping people, taking people down, holding his own against people like DC. John Jones overall, he's shown that he's one of the most dominant grapplers in the UFC, and he uses grappling amazingly against every single opponent. His ground and pound's dangerous, his submission as well. Oh, the submission he got over Lyoto Machida. Overall, he's good in every aspect of grappling, is John Jones, so I've just got to include him, and I'm going to have to put him in the top 2 best grapplers. And then finally, number 1, the best striker and the best grappler out of all the champions. For striker, I've gone Alex Pereira, and for grappling, I've gone Islam. We'll start off with Pereira. Like I said before, came from a glory kickboxing background. He's obviously going to have insane striking. Yeah, outstruck Yuri Prohaska, knocked him out. Outstruck Jan Blachowicz, finished Israel Adesanya on the feet as well. Knocked out Sean Strickland, who's now still one of the best strikers in the UFC and is the middleweight champion of the world. So he was able to knock him out, and now he's the light heavyweight champion of the world. If Alex Pereira had solid takedown defense, I don't think you'd be able to beat this guy. I mean, obviously Adesanya proved otherwise by knocking him out on the feet, but you get what I'm trying to say. Pereira is dangerous on the feet. He's got insane technique. His leg kicks are super dangerous. His left hook is from hell. This guy overall, there's not one flaw you can really give him on the feet. He's insane everywhere. He's extremely technical, extremely dangerous, and he'll put you out there quick. So for striking, I've gone Pereira, and then grappling, I've gone Islam Makhachev. Yeah, he's out-grappled Volkanovski before, out-grappled Oliveira, who's one of the best grapplers in the lightweight division, coming off submission after submission. Yeah, Oliveira is, the submission threat that Oliveira has, and for Islam to go out there and submit Oliveira just shows things. Out-grappled Bobby Green. Overall, he's one of the best grapplers. I'm gonna say right now, he's the best wrestler in the UFC. I can't think of anyone right now that wouldn't get mauled by Islam Makhachev, unless we're talking people like Volkanovski in the first fight between them, or maybe someone like an Arman Sarukian. But overall, his wrestling is extremely dominant, and if you're not a high-level grappler, Islam will put you out there quickly. Amazing submission threats as well. So overall, he's one of the most I'm going to say he's the most well-rounded fighter in the UFC, and yeah, that is my opinion on the strikers and the grapplers out of all the champions. I've ranked them all. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Let me know your thoughts, but thank you for watching.